Welcome, players of the National Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. My name is George Atala. This is my first experience here with the NFL players at Super Bowl week, and we're really pleased to have everyone in attendance. This has been an extraordinary year for the Players Association as we try and live up to the great legacy of Gene Upshaw. The new executive director, DeMaurice Smith, has made some incredible strides in bringing unity to former players, raising health and safety issues with active players, and all in all, bringing the theme of one team together. But to start off, I really want to introduce our new executive director, who's not so new anymore. I'm proud to be working for him on behalf of the players, DeMaurice Smith.
How are you? Welcome. Thank you for attending the press conference. I know everybody probably does have a couple of questions about the CBA, but there's two things that I need to get out of the way of. First, I need to collect on a bet that I had with my son. He thought that I wouldn't say "who dat." I just did. Second, I want to talk about something that we're incredibly proud of. We have a partnership with the AARP that is going to do two things. First, I have heard the message about our retired players. I have heard where we have been as an organization. I've heard where we have been as partners with the NFL, and I've come to the conclusion that we need to make a change. We have to make a change. This partnership with the American Association of Retired People is a part of that change. It is great for our former players, but it is also great for our current players. Because after today, for the first time, the players of the National Football League will have a nationwide community service partnership platform that will not only touch every player who has a foundation or an organization that helps people in their community, but it will also help every one of our current players who want to get involved in community service. It revolves around volunteerism, and I am truly proud this afternoon to welcome Barb Quaintance to the podium. She'll tell you about Create the Good.
Thank you, DeMaurice. Good afternoon. It is a real pleasure and an honor for me to be here on behalf of AARP, and everybody at my house is very jealous that I'm here with all these gentlemen. We could not be happier to have an alliance with the NFL Players Association. We believe that by joining forces with current and retired players, going into communities and giving back, making a difference, we can really collectively make a difference in communities across the country. I know that the NFL Players Association feels very strongly about this and has a long history and value of service, as do we at AARP. And we are going to be looking to players to go back into the communities where they played, where they lived, and join with us and the fans who care so much about them to make those communities better places. Our partnership will actually launch in April of this year, which is National Volunteer Week. And details to follow, but we will be seeing players across the country in communities, putting a spotlight on service and working hand in hand to make those communities that they care about better places. We'll be doing other things too, but we'll save some of our thunder for later. AARP was built on the legacy of service. And you might think, AARP, that's kind of odd. Isn't that for old people? Well, it's for old people and other people too. We believe that the generations working together is a pretty powerful force, and that's what we're about. I would invite you to go to createthegood.org and see what we're about. We are offering people all kinds of ways to get involved, whether you have 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days. Everybody's contribution makes a difference. And DeMaurice, I think by working together, we're going to be a pretty powerful force. So we're delighted, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to have Nolan Harrison and Ben Utt come up. I've asked two of our distinguished former players to serve as honorary ambassadors to Create the Good. Nolan and Ben, if you could just share a few comments. Thank you.
When Dee told me about this, I thought it was because I just turned 50 and got my card in the mail. But seriously, I think from a standpoint of what this will do for us is really help to support and accelerate all the goodwill and charity that the players have been doing for a long time all across the country, and just kind of put an exclamation point next to it.
Thank you.
I just turned 41, so I'm not that close yet. But I think looking across all 34 of our retired players' chapters, this gives us a good opportunity. Most of the chapters and the guys in them are very community-oriented. Gives an opportunity to really have a strong platform to really dig deep into the communities and do the good that they really want to do. So I applaud this. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us all. And it'll be a good opportunity for the cities to see their retired players and the former players in action off the field in the community, what they're doing with their families and their children. So looking forward to it.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud about this partnership because, unfortunately, each and every day we tend to read and focus on a lot of the things that may go wrong in our community with players. I've asked these players to come up today because this is the backbone of our game. This is the backbone of our players. 1,900 strong who are active, almost another 9,000 who are former. And you've heard this before, but we have removed the word retired player in the way in which we talk at the National Football League Players Association. Why? If you were in a locker room, you are a part of a legacy that existed before you and will most certainly exist after you. But each and every one of our players are a part of a never-ending string of men who decided to play this game at the highest level. And I'm proud of every last one of them. And I'm proud to be a part of this organization, AARP, because I think that this small partnership alone will grow into something that will touch every member of our community and will excite our younger people to not only love the game of football on the field, but to cherish and honor your service off the field. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce a very special friend of mine. Almost 8 months ago, I flew up to Detroit to meet a man that I certainly knew watching feats on the field that defy imagination. But I also met a person that I grew to know who continues to have a love for his community and a love for his players and something that we all dig, the love of this game. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Sanders.
Real quick, we know in more ways than one that this is truly a new day for the Players Association. And, we know also that there could probably be better unity between the former players and current players. And we look forward to, really the leadership that Dee will provide there, and also Kevin Mawae. And we know that there's so many things that to be done, but we want to build on that, and we really look forward to their vision and their passion for us, continuing to protect this great game that we all know and love. And I'm certainly happy, and like I told Dee, I'm happy to do whatever I can to be a part of that. So I'm appreciative for him for inviting me, and just look forward to the great things that we're going to do together.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I want to do something for Kevin. Let's talk about where we are with former players. Just so people know, the retired player benefits that flow from the National Football League are a part of a larger pool. And what happens under the collective bargaining agreement, after the owners take about $1 billion off the top, players and retired player benefits compose about 52% last year of all revenue. So what that tells me is that as we look at former player benefits and current player salaries, throughout the history of the National Football League, there has been this tension between current players and former players because the awards of those monies come out of the same pool. So imagine a world where somebody puts a dollar bill on the floor and two people are fighting over it. Well, the owner who puts that dollar bill on the floor doesn't care who wins. He doesn't care who loses. He always wins. I want to do something different because when it comes to especially the benefits for our former players prior to 1993, I believe that our current system is not working. It doesn't work. We know that over the last 15 years, team values have increased almost 500%. As you look around this great week and see everything that's unfolding about this great game, the realities remain the same. Last year, the National Football League generated about $8 billion. Oh yeah, I said B. Billion in total revenue. Billion. So we always are confronted with a world where we say, how in the world can we have pensioners prior to 1993 in this overwhelming sense of revenue and cash generation and have folks who can't afford their health care? They can't get their benefits. They do not have enough to retire over. So I have talked to the Dave Pears of the world. I have talked to the Brent Boyds of the world. I'm thrilled to be partners with Ken Baldessari at Gridiron Greats. I'm thrilled to work with Coach Ditka because those are individuals who want to lead, and that's what we will do. So today, I've taken about 10 months to study this issue. There are 4 things that I just want to run through very quickly about the way in which I think we can do a better job for retired players. First, we have a system where our law firm advises us on one hand and the same law firm defends the disability claims as they are raised by players who are denied coverage. Players for years and retired players for years have said, D, that presents a conflict of interest. I'm going to fix it. We're going to separate that. We will no longer have the same law firm advising us on the right hand and defending the plan on the left. Second, our system of that dollar bill on the floor needs to be fixed. Forbes magazine estimates that every team in the National Football League last year made approximately $31 million in profit. Now, until I had this job, I was an unashamed, unabashed Redskin fan. I root for them all now, Kevin, all of them equally. But I know one thing. From the time that I was 5 years old and walked into that stadium and I saw the Ring of Fame that had names like Pat Fisher, Ken Houston, Sonny Jurgensen, Bill Kilmer, Charlie Haraway, Larry Brown, Mike Bass. Those were the guys that I grew up with. Some small ways I worshiped them. Why? Because they were my heroes. That's the legacy of that team. And all across our 32 cities, one thing is clear. Each and every one of those teams relies on that legacy to promote that game. They sell that legacy. My problem is none of the teams pay for it. So it seems to me that in a world where we know for a fact that at the very least every team averaged $31 million, why shouldn't there be a 2% funding for those profits and put them into a legacy fund to improve the pensions of all of those players who have made this game great, who have grown this game to the heights that everyone here has been able to not only experience, but dig and love. It seems to me that as those teams have grown in 500%, one small measure of a give back. Let's take 2% of those profits, let's give them back to the people who made this game. And you know what? At that point, we will be one team. We will work together to benefit the people who grew this game. We will grow this game as partners, and we will ensure that the legacy that they provided to us was not in vain.
I sit up here today, and for the first time, I got to meet Barry Sanders. And I remember as a young player in Seattle playing against him and think, wow, this is amazing. And I look over the course of the guys that are up here, guys that I watched growing up, guys that I played with, and here I am representing every one of them. And it's such a humbling experience. A year ago, I sat up here and at this very event and explained to you guys the process of what we were going about trying to find the executive director. the things that took place that led up to that, the passing of Gene Upshaw and things of that. And now I sit here in amazement that we've come so far in such a short period of time with the retired players, with the active players, with the CBA and things like that. Last year we talked about the what ifs, and we're still talking about the what ifs. Last year we talked about how will the players react if there's an uncapped season. And I think we've answered that over and over again over the last couple of weeks, especially since the Pro Bowl last week. And we're going to go on. But I can sit here and ramble, and I wrote some things down this morning. I'm just going to read what I wrote, and these are my true feelings about where I'm at, where the PA is at, and where I think we're headed. In the time since Dee's hiring, the PA has been on full throttle in getting him introduced to the players in the NFL, getting the message of the PA out to the players, and educating the players on the issues we are facing today. In addition to all of that, we have been busy with the CBA negotiations, trying to secure the labor peace that we've all enjoyed for the past 20-some-odd years. As I think about my term as president of the NFLPA, the only thing I can hope for is that the legacy that I leave at this office far surpasses my accomplishments on the football field. The process of negotiating a new CBA has been frustrating and moving at a snail's pace, but I understand that we are trying to get done will not benefit me nearly as much as it will benefit those that come after me, and to some extent, those guys that came before me. The stark truth of the matter is that we, the players, want to play football. It's what many of us have done most of our lives, and it's the passion that we all have for a job that we love so much. We understand the business of football, and we are thankful for the opportunities the game has provided for us and our families. However, we do not understand and cannot give into, and what we cannot give into is how a business that makes over $8 billion, an average of $31 million a team, can look at their employees in the face and say, take an 18% pay cut without any justification for doing so. Because of the steps management has taken, we have informed our players individually and collectively to prepare themselves for a lockout in 2011. We hope things don't get to that point, but as competitors, we know on the football field we have to be prepared for every worst possible scenario there is. We love the game. We want to play. We're the players in the NFL, and we're one team. We're going to stand through this. We're going to fight through it, and I really, truly, in my heart, believe we'll get a deal done. But there's going to have to be some give and some take, and not just taking from one side all the way. But it's a privilege to represent you guys, past and present. And it's neat to sit up here because I interviewed Ben Utt for the job of the executive director position. Nolan Harrison was on the short list as well. Mark Bruner was a part of that process. And we all know, more than anything, that this game is bigger than one individual person, and it's bigger than 32 teams. You can say what you want to say about baseball, but football is the nation's pastime. It's the #1 sport in this country. This game that will be played this weekend will be watched by over millions and millions, not just in this country, but all around the world. It would be such a shame for us not to have this game in 2011 because we can't find common ground on how this thing should be played out. So it's with my heartfelt sympathies that we're dragging this thing on to the fans. But it is my belief that we'll figure out something and we'll get it done, and it'll be fair for everybody involved. But Dee, thank you for the job that you've been doing, media, press, the people from New York. I see all of my New York crew over here. You guys just keep writing the stories because the players are going to give them to you. The players are going to go out there, they're going to play hard. But one thing I do believe is when you talk to our players about the CBA and what's coming up, they're all going to say the same thing. We're one team, we're sticking together, and we will get through this. So thank you.
The NFL players know that this game is bigger than themselves. They're aware of what's going on in the world around them, and as many of you know, all 4 collective bargaining agreements are up in 2011. We will reach across all sports with all athletes to recognize the magnitude and the impact on our American culture and the great impact it has and the great impact of sports. With that, I'd like to turn everybody's attention to the screen to show you what we've been doing, what the players have been doing. One team for Haiti.
Be part of our one team for Haiti.
As professional athletes, we count on your support.
And now we are counting on you to help us to help those in need.
Please, Join us,
the players of the NFL,
NBA,
NHL,
and Major League Baseball,
in association with the Clinton Bush Haiti Fund,
to aid in relief efforts that provide much-needed supplies and hope to the people of Haiti.
We might play different sports
for different teams
and different cities,
but today we are one team.
And with that, the floor is open, and I believe my dear friend Chad Johnson wants the first question. So you're up.
Mr. Smith, our boys, we've had time. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We've had time. We've talked on occasion, but in all seriousness, as the season ends after this Sunday, with me not knowing, how serious is it that really football might not be played in 2011? I mean, where are we right now? Basically, is what I'm asking.
Well, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 14. I mean, look, everyone likes to talk about what's the most significant dates in this current CBA negotiation, whether it's March of this year, whether it's March of next year. I go back to 2007, late 2007, 2008. In late 2007, early 2008, the National Football League hired as their lead negotiator the same person who locked out hockey. Right after that, they negotiated television contracts that will pay them money even if the games are not played. And we know that they've renegotiated some assistant coaches' contracts to envision a lockout. All of that occurred before I was elected as the executive director of the NFL Players Association. So if you look at what the steps are, all of those steps have steps that have been unilateral. So for us and for our fans and for our teams, we have pushed hard to first get a proposal, and now we're continuing to push hard to understand a justification for a rollback in player share that would put us back around 1992 or 1993. It's that serious.
Yeah, Mike Kliss of the Denver Post. Kevin, you said that they were asking for an 18%, asking you guys to take an 18% pay cut. Could you elaborate on that? What 18% of what? Where?
The 18% that they've asked. Do I need to?
Yeah, hold on.
Clear? Hello? Yeah, the 18% is simple. It's 18% of the player's share that we're getting. So where we are now at the 59 and some change of total football revenue, they're asking us to take 18% off that and give it back to management. Not to include the $1 billion that they already get back prior to the calculation of total football revenue, that was just about $1 billion.
41%?
It would go down to about 41%.
Yes.
So everybody should know, total revenue is not all revenue. Total revenue, the 60% of total revenue that has been the player's share, is all revenue minus $1 billion off the top that goes directly to management. After you take that $1 billion write-off at the top, players get 60% of that remaining amount. So why should we be talking about total revenue when you hear total revenue and you think it's all? When you look at all revenue, players last year got about 52% of all revenue. 52%. As a matter of fact, that is a smaller share of all revenue than players had in 2001.
Why doesn't that $1 billion include, how do they take off the $1 billion?
That is a $1 billion gift that we give the owners for stadium renovations, stadium upkeep, G3 program, all of the things that players agreed to give for cost considerations to generate revenue. So now, on top of that $1 billion in total revenue that is taken off the top, they want to add another $1 billion. And my question is, why?
Carl?
Dee and Kevin, both of you, how confident are you that given the chance that a lockout happens, that your players are going to be responsible enough with their finances and have the wherewithal to survive some sort of protracted negotiation?
Yeah, I can tell you that we've stepped up our efforts in educating our players on the issues. They understand the possibility of there being a lockout, which means no salaries, reduced benefits and such. We can't make all 1,900 players save their money, but we can educate them and tell them that you need to start saving your money. Over the last year and going into next season, we've encouraged every one of our players to save 25% of their salary. So in the event of a lockout, we'll be able to get through that. We've increased our union dues this year and for the coming season so that those dues will be rebated back to them in the event of the lockout. So they'll have some sort of an income on top of their additional savings that they'll get. And we are looking at other possibilities to help our players out. If I had to look back on the history of past labor issues, they counted on players crossing the line. And there's a difference. We're going to be there ready to go to work. There's no line to cross because they've chained the gates shut. There's a difference between a strike and a lockout. And the 87 strike and the 72 strike and the 74 strike, all those strikes included owners paying high-dollar players to cross the line and come play ball. And then we had scab ball. And the difference is when they lock the gates, they don't just lock the gates on the $225,000 a year rookie. They lock the gates on $100 million Peyton Manning also. So that's the difference.
It's Sam Farmer of the LA Times. The TV contracts were extended by 2 years in a fashion that the NFL typically hasn't done. And they did them very quickly. Did you feel that that would be strike insurance? Is that an indicator to you that
it's not strike insurance, it's lockout
insurance?
Yeah.
Is that an indicator to you? And also, if you could detail the players' participation in stadiums and what's an equitable system for the G3 loan, et cetera?
Sure. Well, the question is whether or not there is any way, I'll rephrase it, of course, in a way that's purely beneficial to me. The question is whether there is any other way of interpreting the new television contracts as anything but lockout insurance. The answer is no. I mean, when you put in for the first time a guarantee that there will be almost $5 billion to not play football, what else can you consider it to be? With respect to the players' participation in stadium bills, the G3 program that Gene and Paul Tagliabue negotiated was just that. Players being partners in the generation of revenue. And let's be clear, I'm an unabashed, unashamed pro-capitalist. I actually dig it. So the idea that our players can be involved in making this game grow and our players are being involved in helping these stadiums come online is not something new, it's something old. It's something we have always done, and it's something that we want to continue to do. So for those cost credits that they want to expend in order to grow and build revenue, we're 100% for it. What we're not in 100% support of is how do you justify at the height of this game a rollback to 41% where nobody in this room knows how much does a team make? The one team that we do have, the Green Bay Packers, we have their audited financial statements, and a couple of facts. One of the smallest markets in America, with no Brett Favre, and with a losing season, their take-home profit was $20 million. So we know that small market teams can be profitable. If there is something to do to change this deal because teams are not profitable, tell us. Tell Kevin Mawae. If there is something out there that shows that these teams' profit margins are off by even 1%, tell D. Smith and we'll tell the players of the National Football League. But I'm still waiting for that answer.
Mark Maskey from the Washington Post.
Can you talk into the mic, please? Thanks.
Yes, Mark.
DeMaurice, given your
DeMaurice, it's very formal.
Given your stated expectation that you expect a lockout in 2011, how much consideration will you give to decertifying the union? And as an antitrust issue, how much is that decision dependent on the final outcome of the American Needle case?
A tremendous part of that decision turns on the outcome of the American Needle case. When the National Football League argued to the Supreme Court that they were no longer subject to the antitrust laws, it instantly made that case probably the most important sports case in the history of American sports. So to answer your question about the decertification, I have to wait until the justices rule. But look, our history is one where the only reason these players, some of these players played without free agency, the only reason these players had free agency is guys named Freeman McNeil and guys named Reggie White. Why? Because they sued the National Football League for violating the antitrust statutes. And now we have a case pending in the United States Supreme Court where the National Football League has argued, we don't even want those laws to apply to us. Well, do I understand what the true game is? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm Alan Schwartz from the New York Times. Dee, you mentioned that you're calling for the owners to give back 2% of their 31, or at least estimated 31 million profits, according to Forbes, to retired players. Is that correct?
It's not give back, it's give.
Okay, give. Now, the players make profits as well.
Absolutely.
Beyond the standard of, the cost of living. Will the players similarly be giving 2% of their profits to the same cause?
We've done, look, out of that 50%, out of the player's share, we already give money to the retired players. So what I'm saying is, if you looked at the balance sheet as being two sheets, all I'm saying is while the players already give that amount to retired players out of their share of all revenue, why shouldn't there be a share of profits out of these teams? When we know that that 500% increase in team values over the last 15 years, once again, they sell legacy, they don't pay for legacy.
Ian Rappaport, Boston Herald.
Yeah, sorry.
It seems that some of the more high-profile players are getting involved now. Tom Brady is one as a player rep. What tangible effect can that have on all this going forward?
I don't know. What I've asked our players to do is to be men, to be businessmen in the business of football. I know what they can do on the field. I dig it. I love watching it. I love the game. But I want them to understand where they are as men and as businessmen in the business of football. So I'm thrilled that guys like Tom Brady, who have not been involved before, have come to the fold. I'm thrilled that Brian Westbrook. I'm thrilled that there's Kevin Mawae. I'm thrilled that there's Jeff Saturdays. I'm thrilled that there's Drew Breeses. But the high profile of the athlete is one thing. The dedication to their teams and their teammates is what we focus on.
Who's got the mics?
Sal Palantonio from ESPN. I wanted to ask you a question based on what Drew Brees said recently about retired players. He said that there's some guys out there that have made bad business decisions. They took their pensions early, never went out and got a job. They've had a couple of divorces. They've made some payments that they shouldn't have made, and now we're expected to pay the bill. It's not the player's fault. I want to get your reaction to that and whether or not you reached out to Drew about that and talked to him and how you can educate players about what's going on with retired players.
First, that wasn't recent. Second, let me tell you about my interview to the executive committee when they were considering who to select or who to at least put into that final group of people who are going to go and be considered for this job. In that room, Mark Bruner was in that room. Kevin Mawae was in that room. Drew Brees was in that room. Brian Dawkins was in that room. Foxworth was in that room. I mean, look, when I went to that room, I told them one simple thing. The rift between current players and former players is wrong. And for any current player to believe that they don't have a responsibility to the people who made this game great is an immoral decision. So look, the reality is, if there was one thing that I wanted to say to probably ensure that I couldn't get the job, it was that. And I'm proud that guys like Kevin Mawae and Drew Brees not only elected me or suggested that I move on in the process. When we got there in March, they made the decision for the guy who said, it is your moral obligation to support the people who made this game great. Make sense? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Into what? How much validity into what I say? A lot. But oh, sorry. What's true? Look, having men understand where they are in the business of football is incredibly important. They are given the opportunity to play on a national stage because, frankly, they can do things that ordinary humans cannot. So when we're in team meetings, are they hearing from me that you need to be responsible about the way in which you manage your life and your resources? I read the same Sports Illustrated article that you read about the number of people who, shortly after football, find themselves in financial distress. It's my job as the executive director to not only educate our players about the CBA, but I want them to be good businessmen. I want them to be good husbands, good fathers, good spouses, good members of their community. So instead of spending time trying to figure out whether there's validity in the statement, I want us to get our heads around that we need to be one team for the people who play this game. And that's taking care of the folks who broke their backs to build these stadiums. And I'm not going to forget them, and neither is Drew Brees, and neither is anybody on our team.
Hi, D. Jason Lockenfora, NFL Network. Given the fact that we are still more than a calendar year away from March 2011, and the fact that generally these things get done at the last hour, last minute, in the past have been extended a couple of times to finally broker a deal, why do you feel so staunchly that a lockout is, I don't want to say inevitable or put words in your mouth, but some sort of eventuality?
Has any one of the prior deals included $5 billion to not play football? The answer is no. So if you are in a paradigm where someone says, we have $5 billion to not play, and during the year where we do not play, we do not have to pay 50% of our overhead that goes to stadiums, on an economic paradigm, where is that advantage? So, look, this is not, I'm not afforded the luxury of trying to guess what's happened. I don't get to sit back with Kevin and our executive committee and hope and dream. Our job is to look at the facts. And when you look at every step that has occurred since 2007, is it more of a preparation to play football or more of a preparation to not play football? So on the day where someone can sit down with us as players and as partners and say to us, our profit margin has decreased to X, well, that's how you get a deal done. And I'm still waiting for that day.
Hi, Liz Mullins, Sports Business Journal.
Speak up, Liz.
Speak up.
Yes.
That's usually not a problem, but all right. I have a question. It was recently reported that one of the NFL owners was frustrated with the lack of progress. I think it was quoted that the NFL owners had made a proposal and the PA has still not made a counter proposal. I wanted your reaction to that. And I keep reading that you have their financials. You have the NFL's financials. You know their revenues to a penny. And I want to know, what is it that you want that you don't have?
Let me take the last one first. We audit revenues. How many people here would make an investment decision by knowing how much money goes into something without knowing how much money comes out or whether it's profitable? How many people would buy a restaurant without knowing what the profit margin is? How many people would invest in a hedge fund? How much money do you have? Well, a lot. What are your rate of returns? That's none of your business. My guess is nobody in this room would make that investment. Well, you know what? Neither will I. So when we have the opportunity to look at both sides of the ledger sheet, both sides of the accounting papers, we do know revenues. But is there anybody in this room who can tell me what the average team makes over the last 5 years? What's the profit margin of an NFL team over the last 10 years? We can look at revenue, we can look at Forbes magazine, and I'm happy to rely on Forbes magazine, just as happy as I'm willing to rely on the Green Bay Packers audited financial statements. When I look at both of those things, it says that the average football team netted $31 million in profit. My simple question, does that sound like the business model where the people who play this game, who risk everything without a guaranteed contract, should give up 18%. So with respect to the comment of the owners, I assume that the reason that we are not closer together is because I haven't said yes to 18%. Well, I apologize.
There's a mic floating around somewhere.
Vito Stellino, the Florida Times Union. Steve Bisciotti said, I think, in the last few days that several teams are bleeding. You obviously disagree. Why do you think he's saying that? And is this 31% or 31 million, is that operating revenue before they pay debt service or after they pay debt service?
Let's just use their profit. I mean, you know, I can spend all time guessing about where that is. How about this? Why don't we use the metric of 2 or 3%, and then if you've got a disagreement with that, tell us what your profit margin is and we'll adjust it. With respect to the comments about we're bleeding, you know, that's fine. Why don't you show us what bleeding means? You know, I did see an article in the paper a little while ago where, and I think it was somebody from the NFL talking about the decrease in 34 million to 20 million in profit for the Green Bay Packers. Well, I have to imagine that only in the National Football League can you move from 30 million to 20 million, and it's a crisis. So I saw the comments about bleeding. I don't understand it because I don't have the financial documents. I don't have the profit margins to understand it.
DeMaurice, Jared Bell from USA Today. Right
Yes, sir.
Left. The 18% reduction, I'm assuming that's part of a proposal that would include a salary cap. Can you elaborate on that and whether or not your position changes if you enter an uncapped year? And as a second part to that, if you do...
a second part?
Relative to the uncapped year.
Mm-hmm. Let me
What type of market would you expect this year in free agency if there's an uncapped year?
We've studied what has happened with free agency over the past few years, and certainly we'll take a close look as to what happens in a new free market era without a cap. With respect to whether we will go back to the cap system if we go uncapped, look, the cap was a request by the owners. The owners have always wanted a cap. I think it's virtually impossible to go back to a cap system if we go through an uncapped year.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of process, we're going to take 3 more questions, but I want to take a pause to introduce the gentleman here behind the stage. Kevin, if you want to pass the mic around. We'll take 3 more questions and then make these gentlemen available for follow-up questions after we break due to time. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Leonard Weaver, Philadelphia Eagles fullback.
Dwayne White, former player, New York Jets, St. Louis Rams.
Walter Harris, cornerback, 49ers.
Mike McBath, former player, Buffalo Bills.
Been at Baltimore and Indianapolis Colts. Go Colts.
Pete Kendall, former player, most recently with the Washington Redskins.
Mark Bruner, former player, current executive committee member.
Nolan Harrison, former player, current steering committee member, Raiders, Steelers, and Redskins.
You sure people don't know who you are?
They know you already. Chester Pitts, Houston Texans.
Ricky Waters, former player, San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Seattle Seahawks.
Looking for a job, Jeff Fisher, contract.
Kajana Carter, former football player, Cincinnati Bengals, Washington Redskins, New Orleans Saints.
Next question.
Larry Fitzgerald Sr., National Programming Network, Minnesota spokesman, recorder. The fact that the National Football League is a nonprofit organization, how does that relate to the other professional sports leagues, and are they also nonprofits? And does that have anything to do with the anti-exemption that is in the Supreme Court?
Larry, can you stand up for a sec? We can't see you up here. There you go.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
The National Football League is a nonprofit organization. It doesn't make any difference. The other sports leagues are nonprofits at all. You know, I think the import of the nonprofit organization is, if you knew the National Football League was a nonprofit, raise your hand. There's about 150 people in the room and 4 people raise their hands. Well, look, it's a critical fact. And I use that fact in order to figure out whether we can be in a situation where an organization that generates $8 billion, that's a nonprofit, enjoys antitrust exemptions that are different than any other regular company in America, is at the height of its popularity among fans. And the last fact, what business in America has secured television contracts to the tune of $5 billion in guaranteed revenue until 2013 in this economy? I can't think of one. So with respect to the nonprofit nature of the National Football League, the wildly successful television ratings that we have had until now, the incredible rise in team values, I keep coming back to an economic model in America that is unparalleled. And that makes it incredibly difficult to then come to players and say, on average, each of you needs to take a $340,000 pay cut to save the National Football League. Tough sell. Tough sell.
Tom Padula from USA Today. Given the unemployment rate and the fact that 1 in 8 families in this country needs the services of a food bank, it may be difficult for either side to engender public support. Do you worry about the damage that could be caused to the game if there is a stoppage?
When you wrap your head around the fact that more than 150,000 people work in our stadiums, in the stadiums, and if you were to draw concentric circles then to the people who are working in those stadiums, parking those cars, the folks that some of them go to my church. Look, there was a time when we might have a romantic view of the person who goes out to the stadium to earn a couple extra bucks and to perhaps see the games. But the reality is, folks who have those jobs today, in today's economy, it's their second, it's their third, it's sometimes their fourth job. Our players get locked out, their families get locked out, but those 140,000 people get locked out too. The hundreds of thousands of people outside of the stadiums, they get locked out too. The businesses who rely on football for sometimes a greater share of their annual gross revenue, they get locked out as well. That's a message that every person in the National Football League, and I don't know if Chad is still here, but he heard that message when we went on our team visits. Because as young men in the business of football, they have to know that the game is bigger to them. It's much bigger than them. I dig this game because I grew up watching those players that I listed earlier. We've got a great town. We got a great football team. There's a great history. But the beauty of that team is something that I will never forget, because on Sunday, what does it do? Whether you're Republican, Democrat, white, black, socioeconomic level, everybody wraps their arms around a game and a team that we dig. Those people get locked out too. So I hear you. It is not a matter of just our 1,900 players. The culture of football is something that's great and fantastic, and I dig it. And I'm truly concerned about the hurt to that culture and to the people who love this game so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We're wrapped up. We appreciate you being here. I have a couple of final things on stats for the year, and then we'll let you go, 30 seconds. This was the biggest year in the NFL. Total league revenue rose to $7.6 billion. Ratings were through the roof. We'd love it if some of you stuck around and had some questions for these gentlemen as a follow-up that if you couldn't get to them before. And 2 other people I want to recognize. Mr. Berthelsen, please stand up. Thank you for stewarding this ship until we arrived. And Mr. Kessler and Mr. Fair, thank you for being here with us too to help us and win an important case in supplemental revenue sharing this week. And to all our staff and players, thank you.